What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. We have some pretty good stuff to go over today. The Doom patch drop that really, I think, drastically changed the game for a lot of people who prefer motion controls, like things like Splatoon 2, for example, that use them. You're going to be pretty happy with what Doom has now. And there are other things beyond those motion controls that we're going to talk about as well. And of course, we got to go over Konami being Konami and stealth launching this Metal Gear Survive and not giving reviewers everything they need to review it, which is a little interesting, we'll say that. Now, real quick, before we move on here, if you have not already, consider subscribing. We're trying to hit 85,000 by the end of this week. I'd like to get that Kirby Nendoroid shipped out this weekend if possible. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing, guys, and let's get started. So big update on Doom on the Switch. Big update, version 1.1.1 dropped, and it fixed a ton of stuff, but the biggest thing was it offers motion control now. That's right, you can use gyro aiming. So what you do is the right Joy-Con will actually act to move the reticule around the screen, which is great for a lot of people because there are people who don't like the twin sticks as much now that they've played things like Splatoon 2 or even Breath of the Wild. I actually really, like I said, I like the motion controls in Breath of the Wild. I think they actually work really well when you're aiming your bow, when you like jump off your horse or whatnot, you slow down time. I think it works great there, really well. And here we are now with Doom getting that same treatment. You can use a Pro controller, you can use the Joy-Con controller, or you can pop it in handheld mode and move the entire thing around. The Joy-Con still, of course, acts like that motion control system, but it's a little funny in handheld mode, I will say that. I don't think that's the best use for it, but of course, if you have it docked, it seems to work well for a lot of people who enjoy it. I see it more so using the vertical and then, of course, aiming to help you with the right stick, and it works well. I mean, if you're trying to like aim and snipe different people out, it works perfectly. So I'm actually pretty happy with the gyro controls after having more time with it. It's so weird in handheld mode. I don't know about that as being an actual improvement. I would just turn it off in handheld mode and enjoy it when it's docked, because it does work pretty well. They also had a ton of other fixes. They had audio fixes, which, if you don't know, there was an issue with the audio where it would just cut out and do some super weird noises at times, almost crackling while you're playing. They also fixed an issue that resulted in a possible crash when using the BFG, fixed an issue called stretched textures to appear in multiplayer, an issue where controls became unresponsive on the game menu, and then a few others as well, smaller ones. And then they did some interesting things here. The motion aiming we just talked about. Multiplayer parties. So there's a brand new party system that they have now introduced, and it makes it easier to group up and play with your friends in multiplayers. And yes, they changed the game icon. Something that people will complain about is that game icon, and they changed it to more so match the box art. Now, there were two that kind of popped out to me here that we're going to need someone like Digital Foundry to go over this, and because they have the footage they had before that showed side-by-side resolutions with things, and we're going to need them for this too, because according to Panic Button in this case, and Bethesda, they have increased the average resolution in lower res areas of the game, and they've implemented CPU optimizations, both of which should give you a better frame rate and better resolution. Now, we can't tell exactly how much better it is. People have said that in some of the high traffic areas where frame rate would tank at times, not as bad. Again, it's kind of hard to tell, right? Unless you had just played it and you kind of flick a switch and now you're playing the new version. It's kind of hard to tell, especially the resolution thing. Because it's dynamic scaling, there are times where you look at it and you say, oh, okay, yeah, it's dropping resolution. There are times where you just can't tell. So we would need someone to count pixels like Digital Foundry. I hope they go back and take a look, because that is like bold and center right there. Improved resolution, or at least base resolution, and then improved, in this case, the CPU optimization for better frame rate. So good overall. I'm glad that they're sticking with this game. They're adding things that drastically change functionality with the gyro control. That is actually really big for people who have been used to it on the Switch so far. And yeah, it is a step above the two sticks and just below PC with mouse support. Mouse support, of course, is still like the de facto way to play a first-person shooter for accuracy, but this is pretty close, I will say that. So good on Panic Button and Bethesda for continuing to update this game, because while people, made fun of it and laughed at it, now that it has really gyro aim, it's technically you could be more accurate than you can on things like the PS4 and the Xbox One, although those will look better and they'll technically run better. So here you are now with a system that has a better control scheme, maybe just running at half the frame rate and lower resolution. So at this point, the Switch version is completely unique. Next up, let's talk about Burnout Paradise Remastered, because it finally got announced. We saw this posted a while ago, strangely for the Switch, by the way, which it's not coming to. Again, very strange. It was originally posted for the Switch on a Spanish retailer site, I believe. I think in Brazil, they were posting it. And then we find out later on that it's coming to the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC. So no Switch version. We'll get to that in a minute because, of course, when I posted it on Twitter that this was happening, people questioned that. We'll at least talk about that for a minute or two. But the big thing here is they are bringing a game that people really liked. I actually like Burnout Remastered. It's not Burnout 3, I know. But Burnout Paradise Remastered could be a cool game. I think it's a little overpriced at $40. I think this should have been a $30 and under game personally, but it's going to show up $40, and we did get a release date of March 16th. Now, the remastered Burnout Paradise, it will have all of the game's previously released content. That includes all of its cars, maps, challenges, and all 8 DLC packs. They'll all be jammed in there. Strangely, that's not included in the current PC version you can get on Steam. That's the Ultimate Box. I believe it's missing a lot of this DLC, which is very weird. Now, they also have, in this case, a PC version coming later, and it's going to be on Origin. So it will be Origin exclusive, as we would expect at this point. EA wants to have their own little shop like Steam, so they don't have to pay the Steam tax of 30% that we know about. Now, according to them, the big upgrade is going to be textures, and they're also going to have 4K at 60 frames per second support. So if you're a big 4K fan, maybe you liked Burnout Paradise back in the day in 2008 and then 2009 when it came out on PC, you can now enjoy it full 4K, 60 frames per second. It is already technically on the Xbox One. You can actually pop in your 360 disc, and it works now. It's backwards compatible. But I guess the additions of I guess just the DLC being there day one, and then the 4K 60 aspect is good for a lot of people. They posted some pictures, and it looked better, but it wasn't like, wow, that's amazingly better. It's definitely the older version just cleaned up for the newer systems. So it's coming. It's next month. You guys have to let me know what you think about this. I do think, again, I understand EA is very tentative about the Switch. They've even said this, we'll wait and see. That's their approach. Back in November, Blake Jorgensen said we're going to take a wait and see approach to the Switch. I get it. But this is a game that was on the 360 and the PS3, and I think would have fit well on the Switch. There's no real open world racing games like this on the system. So it's kind of the point where you go, well, I'm either going to get Mario Kart, Gear Club, or Burnout Paradise. And while Mario Kart's a great game, some people might want a game like Burnout that is a little more realistic. I know realistic, it's Burnout Paradise, but someone might want that type of game that's this big open world style racing game where you can kind of race around the city, crash into things, and complete assignments and missions and everything. So very weird miss here, I think personally from a business standpoint, unless EA is really just like, nah, not with the Switch right now. If FIFA outsold the PS4 version in Japan, and then Faye has done okay, and it's, EA is weird, man. They're so strange when it comes to this stuff sometimes, but hey, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. PS4, Xbox One version out March 16th, and then the PC version out sometime later in 2018 on Origin. Next up, let's jump over to Payday 2 on the Switch. We're kind of coming down to the last couple days before it releases on the European eShop. That is Friday, and then the following week it will show up on pretty much any other eShop. It seems to be releasing a few days early, the 23rd, on the European store. But what's interesting is I believe reviewers are getting codes for it, and it's starting to kind of come out in the wild that this, according to some places, is an outdated version of Payday 2. This was posted on Reddit with a picture of a Switch that needed to be cleaned real bad. But they posted it, and they claimed it was a very old version, like update 131 or something, and that is a very old version of the game. However, it appears that this post is incorrect, and the version that appears to be on the Switch, or at least the one you'll be able to buy in the next week or so, is actually version 147 that is updated straight to the Most Wanted pack. And this is right on Starbreeze's own website in a Q&A session they had on stream saying, correction to the stream, the Switch content included is up to the Most Wanted console update. See the latest update from our marketing team where we describe the included content in detail. Now, the update that they are citing is actually from June of 2017. It is, obviously, it's not like now, but it's the Most Wanted pack. So it looks like the one coming out is the one from the PS4 and the Xbox One with all of that content. And then, of course, the included, at this point, limited timed, it's like a timed DLC character that they're going to put in there. So at least right now, look, I haven't played the game yet. I will get it. I'll probably get it Friday, to be honest. I'll just go on the European eShop and buy it, and I'll try it out, and then I can give you guys a first-hand look and impression at what's included in it, and I guess which version it is. I think you can even look on the on like the settings and everything, see the version. But I mean, I'll take a look then and let you guys know. If you're concerned or worried, to check it out Friday. I should have at least a confirmation as to which version it is. Next up, let's talk about Metal Gear Survive, because believe it or not, it released yesterday. I know so many people were like, "Oh, it came out yesterday. I forgot about that game." I must think Konami forgot because they left the servers off for reviewers. I actually was able to confirm this with Max, the Dreamcast guy, just checking with him, and yeah, they left the servers off until yesterday when the game came out. In fact, some people were having a hard time getting an update that would just allow them to play the game, specifically on the PS4. I believe the Xbox One had the update pretty much ready to go, but the PS4 version in particular had some issues with the update that allowed people to play, and the online servers weren't really turned on until like halfway through the day or something. So it was very weird, but that means that reviewers, if you've probably noticed, there were no Metal Gear Survive reviews at all yesterday. Might not even be some today, and that's because those servers are now on. Finally, they were not on at all when reviewers had the game for about 3 to 4 days prior to launch until then. So if you can't do the multiplayer with other reviewers or other people and see how all of that functions, you're not going to be able to give a good review at all. You'll be able to review the single player, but not any of the single or multiplayer, which probably is about 3/4 of the game, since that's where the game is going to have most of its longevity. And it's very weird that Konami decided to do this, or is it? Because think about it this way, if no one's going to review the game day one, none of your sales will be affected day one. It's almost like how Bethesda mails out games so that people get it day one, probably because they're worried about bad reviews that could affect their sales. And Konami has been dealing with a lot when it comes to Metal Gear Survive. Fans don't really like it. They kind of backlash against it. And this tells me that Konami probably didn't have a ton of confidence in this game if they just then turned on the servers. But maybe you've played it. Maybe you can let me know down in the comments as to how it plays and if you think it's good, because I'm sure there are people that will like it. But I'm going to wait and see what some of the reviewers that I follow, like Max, like others, to see what they think and see how this actually plays out before I buy into it. It's $40, so it's not a full price game at least. But we'll see, because if it gets really bad reviews, maybe I'll pick it up for $20 in 3 months. In our last bit of news, let's talk about kind of a rumor that was flying around the internet yesterday and the day before. I saw a lot of people talking about this, and that is an apparent rumor of Diablo III coming over to the Nintendo Switch. Now, the initial articles that were sent to me were from NeoSeeker, and they talked about how they have found from internal sources that Diablo III is indeed going to the Nintendo Switch. When I read this, I was kind of figuring, yeah, that at least makes sense. According to them, the announcement window is sometime at E3 is when we'll find out about it. Probably a Nintendo Direct of some kind. That would, of course, let Activision Blizzard jump into the Switch with a game that makes a lot of sense for its couch co-op nature. And I think in tabletop mode, it would make a ton of sense to have that where you break off a couple Joy-Cons and you play Diablo right there. I'm trying to think of how well that screen would work with 4 people running around it. But, I mean, you could do Mario Kart with a bunch of people on screen, and it technically works. But in this case, it would be kind of cool to see Diablo 3. Wouldn't have an issue running. It was on 360 PS3 and everything. That's not a problem. And honestly, even the space with the 360 PS3 version and even the PS4 and Xbox One version a little larger, I still think they could get it onto a cartridge and get it out for mass consumption, or make you download some of the DLC. I mean, we already download half our games, even though we buy them in store on the Switch anyway, so what's stopping them from doing that, you know? We just watched Capcom use probably a 500 megabyte card for Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2. So who knows at this point, but Diablo 3 makes a lot of sense. Still a rumor right now, just something to keep an eye out for, just in case it does happen. It's an older game, but I think it makes sense on the Switch, and there are always people who just miss these games completely, even though most of us have probably bought it on 2 different systems, like myself, by now. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it's the Doom patch, maybe you got a chance to download it and try it out, maybe you like the gyro aiming, maybe you noticed the resolution's a little better, maybe the frame rate's better in certain situations where it wasn't. Let me know your experiences with this new patch down below, or maybe you want to talk about Metal Gear Survive. I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. I'll wait for reviews to see what the deal is there, and then let me know what you think about a possible Diablo 3 iteration on the Nintendo Switch. Is that something you'd like to see, or would you be concerned that if Diablo 3 is following you around, you would just never get anything done, much like how Skyrim took over a lot of people's lives again when it came out on the Nintendo Switch? Thank you so much for watching today, guys, and I'll see you next time.